going on, everybody? It is December 27th, 2025, day log episode over NQ and the live stream view. So since yesterday, we've had a massive drop in NQ and ES as well, but mainly NVIDIA due to, if you're not very well versed, I guess, in what's going on. I wasn't really aware of it. I'm not going to act like I knew about this beforehand, but NVIDIA is competing with OpenSeek or something like that. It's a AI app, basically from China. So I believe there's some type of competition there. That's the reason why we're seeing this massive drop in NQ. We had about 1,000-point drop. We opened yesterday on Sunday, and then we dropped lower away from that. So this is one of those situations where what we call, this is not a black swan event, but in a sense, if you're not familiar with that term, black swan can be where you see massive movements in the market that are kind of unforeseeable before it really happens, and it kind of overlays over everything that you were even looking at technically, or manual intervention, things that will happen that are not supposed to be in line with what we're used to seeing, right? So we were talking about last night of potentially looking for the sell side and looking for that idea and trying to look at some possible ideas. I was talking about the uncertainty that really this volume imbalance and the open of that liquidity void was bringing us, even going into this week with FOMC, the Fed rates. I mean, it's just a landmine. Even this month has been very difficult. It's the reason why I stepped back and I was able to just really go back to paper trading today. Even after something like this where you have a very large range movement overnight or going into the session, it's not high probability to do so. It's not high probability to go into the market, especially when you look at the narrative side. That's not something where I want to push inside of. Basically, we have relative equal highs that are left above us, and we have relative equal lows, and we have this massive drop lower that brings uncertainty to the overall market. So I wouldn't be pushing this. I may not even touch live funds this week, and to have the level of discipline to do that, to me, is something that creates consistent profitability. Not to say that you can't be trading with live funds this week, but I would be a lot more on edge. I'd feel a lot more uncomfortable. So just be aware of it. These things will happen. There's going to be moments in time I've seen through the last 7 years where there's major news event drivers or major news releases, and you have wicked movements in the markets. I've seen black swan events, complete collapses of markets. So just be aware of it. It's something to notate, especially if you're newer. But on the technical side, I mean, looking at the weekly chart and looking at the things we were discussing, I mean, I really don't know what to think as far as a long-term vision. When I talk like this, it doesn't mean that I can't go down to a 1-minute chart, 15-second chart, and trade intraday swings. But when I say I don't know what's going on, it means on a higher time frame, I don't know what price is trying to reach for. It can make the lower time frames more difficult to trade, because if I don't exactly know where the higher time frame is going, I don't know if I'm really trading a retracement, an expansion. I don't know if we're going to consolidate. I don't particularly know what we're trying to reach for. So that's the only thing if you see that. I mean, the lower time frames, you see me on a 15-second chart today, and I was able to even trade it. Even though it's paper trading, I don't care too much. It's still the acknowledgement of that it is possible to do so, regardless of the higher time frame bias. But if you have it, then you're able to really, really trade those lower time frames with a great deal of certainty, right, and clarity. So my idea, I wouldn't, even if I was to touch live funds, gun to my head, I had to force live funds this week. I wouldn't touch them until at least Wednesday afternoon after FOMC releases, and maybe not even until Thursday. But I don't really feel the need to be pushed into this market. I mean, there's always better weeks ahead of me where I have great deal of uncertainty, and I like things to maybe die down, especially with FOMC and especially with Fed rates ahead of me. I mean, and this on top of it, I mean, it just creates a whole deal of uncertainty. And regardless of all of that, on the technical side, this is kind of aimlessly trading. I mean, I've seen that we've taken buy-side liquidity here. We also left relative equal highs. We left a liquidity void that's completely open above us. We also have sell side that's beneath us. So which side is it going to trade for? When is it going to do that? I don't particularly know. So that leaves me with a great deal of uncertainty that I don't want to push in. Again, that doesn't mean on intraday time frames I can't trade it, but it creates a lot of uncertainty, and it maybe will lead to losses. And that's what I've seen, is where even though the higher time frame at times I'm getting correct, it's a little bit aimless. So we're going to see what this week presents. We'll go over a little bit of the lower time frames, but there isn't much. I mean, we opened yesterday gapped lower, and we had this massive drop lower. This is why you don't catch a falling knife. You don't try to keep buying something or selling something that keeps rising or falling, because you're going to eventually end up hurting yourself. We come into today's session, and that's where I don't know if we're going to continuously keep going lower. It doesn't need to have a retracement. I don't feel like buying into that and hoping that it goes up. And I don't feel like keep selling. I don't feel like the need to keep selling this thing over and over again. So do you see how when there's a great deal of uncertainty, it's not a good point to push? I mean, it's pretty simple logic. And I think the only thing that people fight it on is because of their emotions. Their emotions see a lot of price movements. They see a lot of people talking about the market, so they feel this fear missing out, and they don't want to be left out of something. But to me, the smartest decision is not to do anything. On the technical side, I mean, really off of the open, from if you're just looking at dealing ranges, I mean, even pre-market open before all this, you're looking at how price dropped from this dealing range low to high, drops inside of this inefficiency, expands away from it. Right before the open, you see from this dealing range low up to this high here, price drops down into this inefficiency, and we see this expansion higher. It's just whether or not the certainty is how far price is going to go. I don't know how far it wants to retrace. I don't know if it's going to go all the way into its premium. I don't know if it's going to eventually collapse. So that's what you're seeing this morning. I had a few trades, if you want to go back to the live stream, where I was just kind of intraday little swings, and I was kind of showing a decent idea of, even if you're trading against the trend, you can trade back into opposing dealing ranges, looking at things on lower time frames, looking at a 15-second chart order flow and seeing how things are moving. But if you look at today, this is first presented FEG. We leave that. We have another inefficiency that's resting here. Price trades down into the first presented FEG. And really this retracement in here is to take out all of this internal sell side liquidity that was resting inside of here. Drops back down on the first presented. We see this expansion higher, takes the buy side, and then I ended up shorting it in here, and that was going into the macro, and you see this dump off lower. Again, there's a lot of deal of uncertainty, so there isn't a whole lot to talk about. I mean, to me, it's a pretty simple rule that I've seen throughout years. If there's something major that comes out, or very large swings in price, especially overnight or the day before, it's just best deal to not do anything. I mean, you could have made some money, sure, but again, you don't always have to press in things. You don't always have to trade. And even like me, if you've been losing, that's the most difficult time to sit still. You don't want to be patient. You want to make your money back. But to me, at times like this, there's only two options. It's to sit still or I lose. There's no other third option of where I may make money or I could make my money back. No, it's to sit still, do nothing, or I lose. And I'd rather sit still than lose, because that's at least a winning position. I can at least still move forward from there. And I'm not digging myself into a bigger hole. So we'll be patient this week. We'll see what this week presents. It's more or less just tape reading, watching price, reading order flow. We have the whole rest of the year. You don't have to rush things. And if things become clear this week, then we execute on it. And that's all there really is to it. So I think that's going to be it for today. And we'll see what tomorrow presents. So until tomorrow, good luck and good trading, everybody. Be safe.